So I'm going to demo QGIS on a Mac, and it's pretty similar on a PC. The only difference may be some of the way the folder setup looks. So I have unzipped the Lab 6 QGIS folder, and when I open that in a Mac, you can see the folder here and all the other junk on my desktop. Here's the folder. I'm going to open that. And then when I open the folder, so it's already been uncompressed, you're going to see a folder called Data. You should see the lab, which is also loaded elsewhere. And then you're going to see something called QGIS World.QGIS. So this is the mapping document, and this is the data folder. If I open the data folder, you're going to see what are called shape files, and these are ESRI shape files or ESRI shape files, or were created in ESRI. So you'll see there is a data layer called Canada, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers or 8 files that are needed to create the layer that you're going to see that shows the provinces of Canada. The same with the city layer. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 files go together. This is the projection file, this is the attribute table file, and this is the actual shape itself. When you add data, you're actually adding the shape file. So we're going to start ArcGIS, I'm going to say that a lot, the QGIS, by double-clicking the world file to launch it. And hopefully you've loaded QGIS. And when this loads, my experience so far is that it loads really zoomed in on the data layers that are in the layer panel. So we'll see if it does that again. Yes, so it kind of loaded like this, and I'm going to say OK to the Q-tips, the tips, and then you're going to see this big orange blob. So you're going to want to choose this link, which will zoom to the full extent of the map. And what you see is a pretty ugly map I created just for you. So the first thing you want to do is not edit this map, but you want to save a copy of this map and edit the copy. So we're going to go up to QGIS project, save as, and you're going to make sure that this document is highlighted, because you want it to go right beside your original. So I'm going to use I'm going to call it Lab 6, and I'm going to put in my initials. You'll put in your initials, and I'm going to choose Save. You'll notice it changed the title up here, and if I go into my folder, you'll see that I have two, the original and the one that I just created, and that's the one I'm going to be editing. This is a good idea, that way if anything gets corrupted, you can start over. So these are your data layers. There are lots of ways to add layers, and we're going to just learn one way the first time. But I'm going to have you work with different elements of this map. First, you're going to do some changing the colors. So if you double click this layer, it's going to open up the properties window. You can change the name of this so it makes more sense. You can change the style. So rivers are usually symbolized by a green color. And there's a couple ways. Some people like kind of to be able to scan this way, and you can choose that. Or you can actually put in the RGB color values or the HSV color values, whichever you want. but let's say I'm going to get a nice kind of blue color and choose OK. You can also change the width of that line. So we're going to click on simple line, and I can maybe type in a 1 and see if that looks a little bit better. That's a little better. Still pretty thick, so I might even go to hairline or a decimal. But I've effectively changed that first symbol. Whoops, that would be no line at all. Okay, let's do that. All right, so I've changed the symbol, so you can do that with all of these. This is what's going to create my legend, so I want to make sure that my layer names make sense. I can use the Identify tool and click on a feature. So let's click on this feature here. Or not. Click on that feature. Oh, it's being tricky. I had this. There it goes. Oh, I clicked on a river. So I don't want to click on the current layer. I want to click on the world countries. Sorry. And now I'm going to click on that layer. And then it shows me the attributes or the field names, attribute names. If I scroll over, I can pull this value field over here so I can actually see what information is available about that place. So I've clicked on Algeria. It gives me some information about Algeria. I can click on Australia. When I'm done, I'm going to turn the selection off and close that attribute window. So that gives me information that way. I can also open up the attribute table. So World 94 is selected. I'm going to open up my attribute table, and I'm going to get information. It tells me there are 160 countries in my map layer. Gives me the area, the perimeter, some other information about them. So the attributes are really useful. I can add a label. So let's say I want to label the names of the countries. So I'm going to double click this. Click. And I'm going to choose labels. And I'm going to say show the labels for this layer. And I have to tell it which feature I want to label. I could have it put the life expectancy on there or the abbreviation for the name. I could say label each area by the population, which is too big a number. So I'm going to go with the abbreviated name. I can pick a font, and this font picker is really creepy. The other ones are much nicer to work with. Usually black is not a great color, solid black for a map, so I'm going to pick kind of a darker gray. Let's see what happens when I do that. I've got the name, okay. So there we go. So that's the abbreviated name for each of the countries. I could zoom in here and take a look at that. It's a nice light gray. So I'm doing a lot of work within this layer or when the layers panel. Now there's other data available that we can add, and there's a couple ways to do this. One way is to go into the browser panel, and if your data is on the desktop, you're going to go to the home folder, desktop, open that up, open that up, open that up, and there's all my data. So you can see that there is a shape file. They all say .shape for Canada. Now city isn't on here, so I'm going to double click city, and it's going to add those city points on my map. If I decide I don't want those, I'm just going to remove that layer from the cities. But another way to, which I think is a little more confusing, is with this button which says add the vector, which is what we're doing, vector data, and you can browse to the data. It'll open up the data folder, and this way you just have to make sure that you pick the .shape file and open that and open that, and that will also be added to your map. So again, since that's going to be a label, No, I don't. I'm going to go into general and change that to, so it's capital, and I'm not going to label them because holy smokes, they would all crumb up there in Oregon. Okay, so I have some data on here. I have gone through all of the options. There's my latitude and longitude in well, there's the latitude and there's the longitude because QGIS puts them in XY instead of correctly in YX. Okay, so now that is the basics of getting your data in QGIS and changing your outlook. I can go back here if I'm lost. I think that'll give you a pretty good start.